There's a few podcasts that I've had that sometimes they can surprise you by how much it hit home. And it's one of those ones. It's been a very, very interesting period of time over the last couple of years, and especially more so over recent couple of months. I can definitely say I'm proud of what all of us, this community of people have done, and it's made possible by people that have a really good shared belief system, that they work together in order to find the greater thing. And sometimes we have to get through some adversity and understands that there are things that will just happen. And what we do about them, how we react to them, is more about what will define how our future will look for ourselves, for all those folks around us. I don't want to make it sound like this is some super deep set of lessons, but I can tell you we're going to talk about the 4 agreements, but most importantly, we're going to be talking to Derek Videll. Very happy with the chat with Derek. And look, it's the end of the year. It's getting ready to close up to holiday season for 2022. And it's not even a stinger kind of opener. I just want to get right to it. So I do absolutely implore you, if you could, connect with Derek. So Derek Videll, you can find him on LinkedIn. You can follow all the links below on the YouTube. And of course, make sure you check out all the stuff he's doing with Instagram. He's the founder of Social Bamboo, doing some really great stuff. Go sign up for his course. It's a free course, 100% really, really valuable content. And just somebody who really, there's going to be a couple of moments in here where I think you can see it in my face in how much it meant with the way we went through some of this discussion. So with that, this is a great conversation, and I'm super proud to host Derek Videll from Social Bamboo right here on the DiscoPosse podcast. Happy 2022 or 2023, whatever it is. Happy New Year. And if we don't talk before then, be good and do good. Have a great year, and we'll see you in 2023.
Hey, this is Derek Videll, and you're listening to the DiscoPosse podcast.
Professional broadcaster. I love it. All right. Derek, thank you very much for joining. I've been one of these. I'm an avid consumer of content and a huge studier of especially sort of the moves that are going on with social media, how to leverage the right things in, how to let the algorithm do good things, and also just the difficulty in keeping up with it. The number of ways in which we can get out there in kind of a broadcast and sort of multimedia. Sorry, I'm old, so I say multimedia like it's 1993 and we still use Flash. But this idea of multiple channels, the availability of reach, but also the risk of not using it effectively and the inability to kind of measure effectiveness. So anyways, I'm a student of Derek Videll. I am super proud to be here sharing time with you. And if you don't mind, for folks that are brand new to you, if you want to give a quick intro, and then we'll kind of talk about everything that you've been doing.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. My name's Derek Videll. I'm the founder of socialbamboo.com. So I've been running a podcast called Social Media Entrepreneurs for a little over 4 years now. And then I just started another podcast called Instagram Marketing Pros. For various reasons, just wanted to own a couple more keywords in the podcasting space. And then growing on YouTube, just doing a number of things, but mostly the business is built around done with you Instagram ads. So I don't sell courses, and I also don't run ads for companies. I run ads with them, is what the entire company is based around.
And that's the interesting thing too, that we've seen a real shift in kind of like advertising consumption over the last couple of years. We saw, cookie apocalypse came along, and it was tougher to do better targeting and follow through on the back end. And at the same time, we also had a shift in patterns of consumption because people were suddenly remote. and they were consuming more. But then I noticed that ad pricing really shifted. It's been a wild ride. In the time you've been doing this, you've seen like fundamental shifts in how the production side works and how the delivery side works. So what, but let's start with what got you started.
What got me started in the podcasting space or
Yeah, and
the
just like
ad
kind of
space?
what was the thing that you said, all right, Derek Videll is a brand, let's run with it.
Yeah, I mean, so I was transitioning out of a sales job because I knew I wanted to go into the online marketing space. And I initially got started in e-commerce. And then after a little over a year of doing that, we really got a handle on Instagram. I think I had like 22K Instagram followers at the time, but we were making sales from there. And I was driving around one day just trying to find a podcast on Instagram marketing. And when I typed in Instagram marketing, I realized like the top 4 podcasts there hadn't even come out with an episode in over a month. So I was like, what am I
Oh,
looking at right now? I was like, this is kind of crazy. So I started the show called Instagram Marketing Secrets of the time. And I had no intention of monetizing or anything actually. And I do believe if you start with a monetization goal, you're going to have a more clear path, but it's not always how it plays out. I am someone to build a parachute on the way down is more my philosophy. And I just came out with like 3 episodes later that day. I was just like, okay, I'm starting this right now, Instagram Marketing Secrets. And I got listeners pretty quickly just because I was like the first result on Instagram or Instagram marketing within a month or two. And from there, I just had to start figuring out things to sell. And then it's just kept evolving. And I started getting into courses and then evolving into the program that it is now. So it really was just a keep going kind of story and just keep, adjusting as the audience lets you know over time.
now I can already spot a familiar pattern that I enjoy embracing myself, but also it's hidden. There's a lot hidden behind that pattern, which is this idea, like you say, like I'm just going to go, I'm going to take a run at this, right? And anyone would listen, they'd be like, oh yeah, so Derek says I'm going to put together 3 episodes in a day, and they kind of get into that mindset of like, yeah, yeah. But that was not done without some level of understanding of what you were about to get into. And actually, one of my favorite podcasts you had was around sort of like the 3 focuses and like the areas for entrepreneurs. And this, you talk a lot about the mindset that's needed to do it, which is great because I love it's a great mix of like your, you know, interviews, but you also do a lot of good sort of solo content that kind of shares your ideas that are lived experience. So when you kind of come up with this, and even like you talked about a background in sales, however, marketing, keyword, how to like leverage the stuff. You've got a broad set of skills. And it's just, sales may have been where you were working, but I kind of sense that you are a real, like whatever it is. In technology, they call it a polyglot, on the programming side, but whatever a polyglot version of business is, that you understand sales, marketing, personal motivation to keep yourself on top, even when it gets tough. Like there's a lot
Like
of
how Gary Vee says, like entrepreneurial DNA.
yeah, yeah. And it's what was interesting too is you do it in such a great way that it's not like Gary Vee. God bless Gary Vee. I mean, he obviously I like current Gary Vee when he kind of got out of struggle porn Gary Vee, which was, grind or die. If you're not grinding, you're not living. Like he got a little bit heavy into that. However, obviously that was a tactic. It's worked and it motivated a ton of people. But it also kind of those things set people off. I have a shirt as well. I remember seeing it was Mac the VC. I saw him wear a shirt one time. I was like, how do I get that shirt? And it just says, nobody cares, work harder. And it was funny. For me, it was like a personal motivation. And then somebody actually sent, replied to a tweet that I put out with it. And he's like, no, we care. And I was like, oh, right. Like it is funny that we have to use sort of personal drive stuff, but you have to explore areas that are uncomfortable. You have to get educated in stuff that you really just haven't had exposure to, but you have to learn. So, what's the Derek formula? I'm going to unpack it here in the next hour.
Yeah. So I think it really is. I'm going to take motivation from from anything that I can. So if Gary Vee says something like nobody cares, work harder, I'm like, okay, cool. I'll get motivated from that. Or if they say like, hey, sometimes you need to take a breather and take a look at life, I'll be like, okay, cool. Like still motivating. I guess I just, if you can just take value from as many things as you can and, and just process something positive out of it, it just makes it a lot easier. So I make examples like if I had a really bad sales month, that's very motivating. If I have a really great sales month, it's very motivating. If I have if I feel like I could be in better shape, very motivating. If I feel like I'm seeing results in the gym, it's very motivating. It's not you have to bulletproof yourself to not losing your aspirations just because of whatever gets thrown at you. It really is just surrendering to life as it's happening and let it happen to you, and just really taking whatever you can from it. But I just kind of believe like if the thoughts that I'm having are taking power away from me, not that I'm perfect in this in any regard, especially since becoming an online entrepreneur working at home all day, you're alone with your thoughts so much more. There's lots of times that I'm combating my own thoughts. And you just have to get really good at telling yourself whatever you need to be able to stay positive and stay in the game. It really is kind of just like telling yourself, looking at it however you can. You're trying to avoid the worry, and you're trying to avoid being worried about the future or anxious about how the past has gone, and truly living in the present moment is really what a lot of entrepreneurship and life, of course, comes down to. Because if you're not living in the present moment, then you're not focused. If you're making a video and you're thinking about how you didn't like how the last one went, or you're not sure where the money's going to come from next month, just anything outside of being truly focused, which is really hard to do for a lot of entrepreneurs because we are a lot of times ADHD in a lot of in certain ways. Or at least I feel like I am to a high degree, although I also don't talk about it like that. So I to my point here, I don't talk about my ADHD excuses all the time because it doesn't empower me to do so. I just kind of look at ADHD as my superpower. And really everyone's superpower also is a lot of times their greatest weakness. So ADHD would be one of mine. And I've got like a lot that I could list off that I feel like is my greatest weakness and greatest strength in one. And you get to choose which one it becomes for you. So ADHD, it makes it hard to focus on anything that you don't love to do. So it makes it so I can only do what I love to do. Kind of a superpower in a way, right? Like I can't even consider most traditional careers just because it would really make me unhappy. Even if it was making me a lot of money, I would choose to make less money working for myself in almost every scenario. And it just kind of makes it so I'm like, I don't consider quitting because I don't like when I do consider it, I'm like, oh no, I'd rather be broke and do this. So it's like not hard to stay, right? When I'm going through the early phases of entrepreneurship. But yeah, I think that to answer your question in short and wrap it up would just be, you have to have a positive perspective on whatever happens to you, because if you really think about all the times that you were worried in life, most of them didn't play out as something that you needed to be worried about. And it's just another level to deal with this in business because it is related to your finances. And that is usually the biggest stressor. If people are financially struggling, it makes it, it's like the biggest problem in the world. It's like really the only thing that you can even focus on at that time. You can't even really give attention to the rest of the areas of your life until you're not broke. So if you can't handle that part of entrepreneurship is where it's going to be hard, because it's hard to find success guaranteed within your first couple years.
There's a lot of books, a lot of guides, a lot of great podcasts that kind of go through those formulas. Like in effect, it's not unlike behavioral economics, right? These are fairly formulaic things. There's ways we can do it. And you end up sort of in this toss up of like, well, if it's just a pure formula, why isn't everybody doing it? And in the end, it's not because the formula isn't working. It's because people are unwilling to be able to go the distance with the formula. And that's why, actually, it was a great interview I heard recently with David Goggins. And I poke fun at his motivational style sometimes too. I'm like, going out and at 3:45 in the morning, taking a selfie, shirtless, running around wherever he is. I'm like, I find it funny because I'm like, it's both motivating and like like, this may be not motivating for some people, but his method is just simply, it's like, hey, if you find it inspiring, like you said, great. If it gets somebody off the couch, fantastic. And he says, I'm really not here to inspire you. He says, I'm doing this for me. Like, I need to do this every day. I need to, like he says, I wake up in the morning and I look at those shoes sometimes for half an hour. And I'm just like, no, not today. I'm like, but he's like, but I got to do it. I got to do it. And I got to motivate myself. And he says one thing, to carry on this idea of like ADHD and, I think a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of, strong leaders actually carry these, challenges, and we've built compensatory methods and systems to deal with them. And, and Goggins said, like, hey, you got ADHD. What are you doing about it? Right. You got, whatever it's going to be, you need help with mood management. Then what are you doing about it? You need to get in shape. What are you doing about it? It's not about making excuses. It's really like embrace, he talks about embrace the suck. And I do like that, I like pain. I'm a cyclist. The difference between a good cyclist and a great cyclist is pain management. It's like, it's motivation through the hardest parts. And then I learned in entrepreneurship, same thing. It's like, yeah, there's gonna be some difficult times, and making that move and exploring new things, it's gonna be uncomfortable. But if you can embrace that and do it, it's anyways. I'm with you. You're literally like speaking the perfect like language. Like it just makes sense to me. And I think to a lot of people that listen, I get a lot, like some of my most popular podcasts have been ones where we talked about pushing through difficult times, motivation, entrepreneurship lessons, much more than like, hey, I've got this fantastic technology and it can do this amazing thing. People love that. But hearing about why and how is actually like super cool. I think that's which is why, again, I could talk you up all day, because you really bring this beautiful like equilibrium between like doing a thing, but then understanding why it's important, how it works, and how to kind of like measure what matters as you do that thing, and kind of embrace that. So
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
if you were to look at now, let's, I kind of like bypassed what should normally be the second half of the podcast, because I had to touch that because you really nailed it. But let's talk about what you're doing with Social Bamboo. Like what's this idea? Like what is the methods, that you've kind of built and that you're doing with your clients, and what has been the fun and the challenge as you put all that together?
Yeah, really with the digital education business, the biggest first challenge is to find a working offer. And then from there, you're just trying to get more traffic. At the beginning, you're trying to post content and figure out your offer. So you have really just those two major components of traffic and conversions that you are tweaking both. So you never really know what the issue is. And then once you get the offer, you say, okay, if I get people on the phone or if I send them to this web page, it is converting at a good amount. Now you're just figuring out the traffic game. So the first 2 years of the podcast, I was trying to figure out what that offer was. And I went into selling courses like the $997 course. And then I was like, oh, what if I did a $697 course? That's what the issue is. And then I did like a $49 course with a bunch of upsells on it, an ascension funnel. I've done like free ebooks and, webinars and live webinars. Actual live webinars. And, I did a lot of those strategies. I did short form VSLs too. I tried doing like a 20-minute webinar, running ads to it. And ultimately I spent a good deal of money on Facebook and Instagram ads to figure out what didn't work. And I really feel like I was coming into the $997 course area a little bit late. I was buying a course on how to make courses.
Yeah,
from
the irony,
like,
buying courses on how to make courses, and but it's that in itself is a bloody massive business, right?
it is. I mean, you're selling the dream of escaping the 9 to 5. So The thing is, a lot of those people who get really rich, they do so by marketing it to everyone by using like the lifestyle marketing. And entrepreneurship, I really just feel like is you're just allowing yourself to create whatever life you want. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs only ever want to be six-figure entrepreneurs, because as soon as they would make like 300K in a year, they'd be like, why would I keep working? There's really a lot of extra drive that is necessary to build these seven-figure plus businesses, and want to keep growing from there, that I might not even have in some ways. I'm finding that there's a certain amount of money that I make that I am like, time to travel, I don't
Yeah.
keep going. So it really is lifestyle design. Um, but yeah, so I started doing all those different courses. And then after 2 years, I finally made a done with you program. So I did kind of in the middle, because I'm like, I don't want to be an ad agency. And I had actually already tried to run ads for some companies before. And I realized how difficult it is to say, oh, what are you selling? Yoga products, or you're selling a Pilates course? Yeah, I've never done Pilates in my life. Let me just make you ads that are really profitable and sound like your business, like you want them to, and have all the branding that you want, and sell you Pilates courses. Like, it's just such a stretch. And it's kind of crazy the amount of people who thought they could be an ad agency, like without ever running a company themselves. Like, it is difficult work. It is not difficult to turn them on, but to really run a profitable ad campaign, I realized like this is not good. And then when I give people the do it yourself course, it's not enough information. Like, I can show them examples on examples, but unless I actually cover their business, which a lot of them just have their own unique invention, even so it couldn't even be possible. Like, it just wasn't enough information for the average person to do it. So I was like, I need their minds, because they know their customers and every bit of information that I need on the spot. And then I'll do it with them, and we'll write the ads live over a call, and we'll press publish together and everything. And when I started doing it like that, that's how I could get people results like pretty much right away, just because I'm like, you're not turning them on until I give you full approval, because I've just done this enough times. So
Right.
then that was like, this is really what's best for them, and what was best for me too, because it was actually scalable. And then that's how I arrived at that. And I speak about my offer here, not to like sell my offer, but because I encourage anyone who's looking to do a digital education business, the done with you method is oftentimes the one that's scalable, still high ticket, and gets people results the best. So I really prefer that way.
Yeah, totally. And and we talked at the start, and I kind of I promote people promoting themselves, because I think that's one of the things that we should do. I I'm lucky I get to choose my guests, and you stand out with an integrity level that is unfortunately rare in a lot of kind of like online marketing and coaching and all. I can tell the difference between somebody who bought a PLR book and fired it up onto Instagram, and somebody who actually like either created or even took additional content, but you have definitely knowledge and lived experience behind it, and that comes forward in the fact that you got almost 300 episodes of a podcast. That's not something you can buy. That's not something you can phone in. Like, you're proving it out, and you're as the startup lovers love to say, like, you're doing the grind, right? You're doing what's necessary and staying consistent. And that's chapeau, hats off to you for doing that, because I think more people need to look at, like, I took a break at one point. I was doing the podcast, and I was originally doing it with work. Like, I kind of said, I want to run a podcast, and I was working at a company, and I was like, hey, what if I do it like an independent style podcast, but we associate it to our local tech community. They're like, yeah, sure, run with it. And so I ran with it, and I did like the first 20 or so. And then at that point, they're like, what are the KPIs of this? And there wasn't a measurable audience size. There wasn't a tie to Salesforce. And they really said, well, you're putting 1 hour a week or 2 hours a week, and it's not huge, but yeah, we aren't really seeing any results from it. So let's just shelve it. I'm like, hey, okay. And then, so I did, I shelved it for like, a while. And then it suddenly hit me as I looked back on iTunes, and I still had the podcast just sitting there. Like you said, you go and you see them, and they're like, they haven't had an episode in months. And I see it was like 4 months with no episode. And I look and I see a bunch of comments. It's like, oh, people are watching it and they like it, they're listening to it and they like it. I'm like, there's no better motivation. And I was like, I I loved it. I did it because I loved it. Let's just do it. Like fit it in. And I like made a point to fit it in and get back on the grind. And then yeah, now this would be like 200 and almost 250. I can't remember how many episodes I've got at this point, but and then at that point, the thing I want to explore next, right? I said no monetization. My goal here is to learn. I get educated. This is purely selfish. I get to talk with amazing folks like you, learn lessons, share those lessons and those conversations with people that listen. I don't need to make money. I've got a job. I've got my own company. I'm financially secure, so I don't need to chase revenue out of this thing. Ironically enough, we do have sponsors. We do have folks that help to support it, but I don't chase that as a revenue source. So, like you said, we talked about monetization. I backed into monetization rather than saying this is the plan for growth and here's the point at which I would monetize. I was literally, someone said, "Hey, can we sponsor the podcast?" I'm like, okay, sure, why not? It never dawned on me to chase that as a revenue stream. So, sorry, long story to talk about me doing it. I did it because I enjoyed it, and that comes out in what you do as well. But when you tell someone, when someone says to you, "Hey, look, Derek, I want to build a podcast. I want to build I want to build a course, and I want to build a path to monetization." Like, what is that equilibrium between like do it then monetize or do it to monetize?
Yeah, so I would say if you are starting in a space that is already proven, so fitness, you're going into the major three markets are health, wealth, and relationships. If you're going into any of those three, you already know that the market really exists. I mean, everything really falls under there. So if you're going super niche and you're like, I'm really not sure if there's a market for this, how to flip things from your house on eBay course that I made that is a nice way for the average person to make a couple extra grand this month by flipping things on eBay. Just some new method that they made. I mean, if you're making people money, then of course you can sell a course for less money than what you're going to make them or what your marketing tells them that they're going to make. Yeah. So I mean, there's always like a way that you can make it happen, I guess. It would just be if you're going into something that is really unproven or you feel like the market is too small, then maybe you don't take let's build an audience over a couple of years and then try to sell them something and figure out that I couldn't build an audience. Like, you don't want to waste a lot of time doing that. So I would say that if you kind of ever go to doing surveys and maybe messaging people and asking if they're interested, I'm still trying to think of like, while I'm saying this out loud, I know that there's still a lot of source of error for this to go wrong. But surveys are a great way to at least get some initial information on the market. If you already know, like, yeah, there is I can definitely help people in this respect as far as how to package it, how much it would be, how I'd find those people. I know that there is an answer to those that exist. I don't know what they are, but I know that the answer is there for sure. Then yeah, if you want to go into it, just know that you do have to have motivations outside of the money, especially in the beginning stages where you're saying, I really want to work for myself. This is my main idea for getting out of my current job. I want to escape my 9-to-5, but I'm not going to do that yet. So I'm going to build this business over the next couple of years. If you have all of that motivation, so if you have the reason why, if you know that there is a definite how out there, then it really is just getting started from there. And then how I tell you to look at the business is there's really just three components to any online business: traffic, sales process, offer. Traffic is going to be any social media, SEO, paid organic traffic, or messaging, direct messaging, like outbound marketing. Just the three categories: paid traffic, organic traffic, and then outbound messaging is what comprises of traffic. Sales process is either sold by you or sold by a computer. And then offer is going to be like the pricing, what they get exactly, if it's subscription or if it's one-time payment, are there payment plans, is there a warranty, all of the things factored in there. So there's really the three components. Like I was telling you, like that I was messing around with for 2 years, like trying to play around with them. Like, oh, is the podcast good? Should I make an Instagram for that? And then what should I post on Instagram? Right. All of that is in the traffic. Because you want to make sure that that's a good use of your time. But once you get those three components down, then it's like the first few years of this job, you're really inventing the training manual and inventing how to do it. And then you get to a certain point where you're like, okay, cool. So if I come out with 2 podcasts a week, 1 YouTube a week, 5 YouTube shorts that I pay this guy, which took me 5 hires to get through before I hired him. Eventually you get to a point where it does feel like you're a little bit more like an employee of your own business, just showing up to do your routine tasks. So there is a point where you don't have to just be constantly innovating to keep your head above water. You get to innovate and have fun with it. Like you're already doing the baseline of things that already produces revenue, and then now you're just having fun on top of it. So really, I mean, that vision of I work from home, I get to wake up whenever I want. So I'm not like I'm gonna wake up at 4:30 and do all these things, even though I do choose to work quite a bit. Just naturally, if I'm bored, I'm like, I don't really want to play video games. I want to do something more fulfilling. But I also, it's snowing outside. So yeah, I guess I'm working, right? It's not hard for me to like want to work more than what I'm scheduled. I don't even schedule free time, honestly, unless it's like a major event or a concert that is like already set in stone. Otherwise, it's kind of more like as I want to take it. But yeah, I've just really liked the lifestyle that I've been able to create and still creating. But that is the motivation to stick with it throughout all the crap you're going to go through. It's very fun though. Like if you still look at it as like I spent $10,000 on Facebook ads to sell my first $1,000 course. And then I found out later, like, she's like, oh, I came from your podcast, even though like the sales was attributed in Facebook ads. So I was like, okay, I probably would have got that one anyways, eventually.
Yeah.
So essentially I just spent $10,000 to learn how not to do Facebook and Instagram ads. Awesome. So if you just have, it really is, you have to have that positive perspective. And I've worked with so many people, and they'll run their first ad campaign, get hundreds of leads at a great cost. They don't convert the amount that they were expecting to, which was based on nothing, just what they wanted to do. And then it didn't meet their expectation. And they're like, well, I feel like it didn't really go well. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, look at all these leads we got. Now now let's make a new game plan to convert them. They're talking about their problems as if there isn't a solution that the results pointed them to. So right. it is that it's you being able to take results and it telling you what to do. If you just really can't interpret the results that are happening in your business, and that's when you feel very hopeless as an entrepreneur. I felt like I've been 2 feet from gold the entire time, even though looking back, I'm like, I guess I wasn't, but I thought I was, and it kept me motivated. So I'm going to keep telling myself that.
The interesting thing is that problems like the pivot point or the next like inflection point is often hidden in the guise of a problem statement. And it's so funny that I ran a landscaping business when I was 15, and it was so funny. And I'd say that as like, I was mowing lawns. That's me. But what I was doing, I was running a landscaping business. Right? So in my mind, I like printed off cards. I'm like, here, I'm a landscaper. And my limitation was the fact that I had no vehicle with which to get to the places. So I chose a market. I was like, I'm going to go to people that have lawnmowers, but don't want to mow their lawn. I'm going to charge less. And then that will be my route to market. I had 2, family friends that were already paying me to do it. So I'm like, okay, what if I just go to their neighbors and kind of approach it that way? And then my limit was like, oh, well, there's only so many that I can do in a day. How am I possibly going to like grow this, beyond just me, I was doing fine. It was fun for, a 15-year-old kid. But if my business mind was like, hey, I've got a scaling issue, well, then immediately you think like, what if I were to get somebody else to help me and I could pay them, 80% of the revenue, but then all of a sudden I could have 10 more customers or 5 more customers. So they're getting paid well. I get a little off the top. Now I'm legitimately running a business. And that's how I ended up doing it. In the second year, I was like, hey, I'm going to do this. But then I got a full-time job. I'm like, I've got all these clients that I'm mowing lawns for. So I got a friend of mine to do it. And I gave him almost all the revenue because I get to maintain the relationship, the learning from it. But if I had gotten stuck at the like, well, there's no point in going forward because the best I can do is I can mow 5 lawns a day and people have to drive me around. It's hard. A lot of like natural resistance occurs. And that's that Stephen Pressfield. He talks about thing of capital R resistance, the thing that just you got 1,000 reasons why you shouldn't do what you're about to do. It's harder to find the one reason to do it. And I think that's sort of the entrepreneurial thing of like just seeing through all of this, like many reasons why it can go wrong and just saying like, yeah, wing it. Let's do it.
Yeah. If you have an understanding that there's absolutely a solution, then you'll act accordingly. It's like you're hiking a mountain. Like I really feel like it's people hiking a mountain and they're like, I don't think there's a top to this thing. It's like, yes, there is. Or yeah, it might be a false summit because entrepreneurship is a series of just never ending false summits. But yeah, it is just like, of course we'll get higher if we keep climbing. It's just kind of silly to question it. But I know it's so much easier said than done. It's easy to talk about emotions being like, oh, just get over them, just keep working, just keep grinding. And every time I get into a state where I'm like, okay, now I'm going through a hardship, I'm like, all right, you got to take your own advice in this time, right? And it is easier said than done. Like I like to say, when you're in a negative state of mind, it's easier to get out of it by pursuing gratefulness rather than happiness. So like, what are you grateful for rather than like, why am I happy right now? Can be a better path out. And then I'll be all negative and I'll be like, okay, what did I say before? Okay, what am I grateful for? Oh, shut up. I don't want to do this right now. Right. So there is something about just, you can process it for a little bit, but it's to get out of it as quick as you can. And I'm a big fan of the 4 agreements. The 4th one, just always do your best, is
this is like really, it's literally on my screen. First of all, I want to say thank you because I don't even think you can understand how like viscerally that hit me, what you just said there. And like this is this thing, and I every once in a while I have like my tab up of like sort of like the top things that sounds like would map to a lot of the stuff you had, but man, like it's powerful stuff, and it's like the simplest things. And the 4 Agreements, one of my favorite books, and I used to give it out. I would buy like 10 copies and just hand it to everybody I know. And that for folks that are new to it, it's Don Miguel Ruiz. And this is the Coles Notes version or the Cliffs Notes version, but read the book. It's not a difficult, long read, and it's so fantastic. Like, be impeccable with your word, and it's commitment to yourself as well as to your clients and your customers. It's easy to get kind of lost in that, but if you say you're going to do something, you're committing to yourself that you're going to do it, and you're also committing to other people, and being able to do that. And what you talked about before too, don't take anything personally. People really get lost on this one in life because they think, yeah, like I'm not going to take negative stuff personally. I'm like, no. You can't take anything personally. If it goes great, you were along for the ride. If it goes badly, you were along for the ride, right? Take responsibility for what you can, but don't feel responsible for everything. And this sort of thing of like blame and responsibility are people treat them as interchangeable. It's not this case. Like ADHD, you got it. What are you doing about it? Right. What you had a good month. Well, all right. Motivate yourself. You had a bad month. Perfect. Motivate yourself. Like, look for opportunity. And like those two, I think, are the ones that really, really stick with me. And of course, don't make assumptions. Whew, easy to get wrapped up in. And my favorite, I would say, is like my grandmother taught me, is just always do your best. When I was a landscaper, she was so proud of me. And I thought, oh, wow, like that's it. Like she thinks like that's what I should be doing. And then I ended up getting into retail, and she was like, oh, wow, you're so good at it. I'm so proud of you, and then every time I would do something new, I became a cobbler. I was literally repairing shoes. It was like a completely out of left field sort of approach to working. And she was like, you're doing a trade. It's so rare. And I love how you're throwing yourself at it. And I realized she wasn't proud of the things I was doing. She was proud of the way that I was approaching it. And then that made me understand like what power I had and what I could then also coach other people through. And so anyways, yeah, I mean, I like it makes me light up when I hear like what you just said, you know, and you've done it. That's the other thing that's important too, that people need to say that it's very easy. You know, I always feel bad. Like you see somebody who's like, you know, an 18-year-old person that they're trying some kind of online marketing, and that's great. Like there's nothing wrong. There's nothing to say that you can't have learned a lot by 18, but I kind of prefer somebody that's gone through the rough spots and gotten on the other side of it. It's very easy to just be like, yeah, everything's gravy, everything's good, and sell that story. But again, like so, why I was excited to chat with you was this idea that hey, it's not. There are tough times you're going to go through, and you know you are young, but yet you've got such a like a real depth and breadth of experience that's rare in somebody that you know that is you know I mean I'm not even I'm sort of ballpark guessing age, but it's like you
31.
have you have a lot of lived
I should have made a
experience.
guess.
Yeah, exactly. You have. Yeah, I was about to go in that range, so you know, but it's like
I'm
again,
32 in like 2 weeks though, so I guess I should say
yeah.
that.
I always like to surprise people when this like the worst like dad joke ever. Somebody says like, "Hey, you know, you're." I said, I'm an older fella, so you know, I was sort of joke about that, and they're like, "Wow," you know, I said, I'm going to be 62. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, in, you know, 12 years, you know, but it's just to mess with them. They're like, oh, geez. But the, the, the integrity of coming to it and the humility to, you know, tell your story publicly, to be open about the tough stuff. That's what that's why we're here today, because I was like, all right, I believe in how you're doing this, and I would trust somebody to follow your path and you know hopefully take lessons and hopefully you find successes because you really you share a ton of great stuff.
Thank you.
Now here's the fun part. We're going to get back into the business part again. I'm going to talk dollars. Spending money on ads is a really risky and dangerous lesson. And I know this is one that people are often scared of because they think I'm going to experiment. I can try Facebook ads or Instagram ads. And like they're doing a side hustle. They're doing it part-time. So I look, I'm like literally leafing through the wall. I'm like, I got $70 to spare this week. You're like, there's not a lot of experimentation you can do. And people can kind of get fearful of like they hear a number, like you even said before, like I spent $10,000 on Facebook ads, and immediately people are like, "That's it, I can never use advertising." Like, no, 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 no. Derek already learned the lesson, so he will make it so you don't have to spend 10K on ads to do
I got
things that
you.
you unexpect, right? How do you help people to kind of be effective with experimentation when there is
Yeah,
a
you want to
dollar pay
be
to
able to be
play?
effective at a low budget, because if you try to run a traditional ad campaign where the call to action is to buy your product from the ad, that's what I like to consider just a traditional ad campaign. How am I going to just sell this right from the feed? Your copywriting has to be correct, your audience targeting has to be correct, the offer and how you present it and the little value points, and handling possible objections, having retargeting ads for people that click on that page and add it to cart but don't quite buy yet, and then they also get an abandoned cart email. Like having all of these little components working and optimized is often the difference of a profitable ad campaign or not. And especially with e-commerce, if you're selling a low ticket product, which I call just under $100, likely the profit margin that you get from a single order sale will never be the enough to cover your costs, which is why a lot of clothing companies do so well, because they can get their order the carts over like $200 really easily just by saying free shipping over $200, and then there's a bunch of clothes on our website. A lot of people just do it, right? Or you just give them some kind of quantity discount once they get over there. Otherwise, a lot of times it's like an upsell funnel that's really necessary. If you kind of say, hey, it might cost $30 to $50 to acquire a customer, doing it this way, do we have the chance for the average cart value to overtake that? And the answer is no, for a lot of businesses. So here is how I recommend to do it, where you pretty much can't lose. I can say now, if you execute it correctly, right? Easier said than done, especially your first time. I've done this over 150 times now. But this is how I tell businesses to structure ads on a low budget that just want good results pretty much no matter what. Big promise, but I'll show you why I'm saying so. So rather than saying, all right, I just debuted my brand new clothing store, let me just try to run ads and say 25% off. I say run an ad campaign that says, hey, to celebrate the grand opening of our clothing store, or hey, the 3rd anniversary, 10th anniversary, whatever, some kind of reason, we are running a giveaway for a $250 shopping spree. If you have for clothing, I'll do like a shopping spree. For other things, it's usually just giving away the exact product as it is. And this works for B2C courses and literally anything B2C. I've had people do this with like duck hunting, trips, car tinting, window tinting, equestrian apparel, artists, really any B2C business, and you just run a giveaway for it. And part of the reason why this works so well is now the copywriting is no longer part of the equation. We don't have to convince them to pull out their credit card. We just have to convince them enough to say, like, do you want this for free? And that's a lot easier to do. And usually before someone acts on an ad that is trying to get them to buy something, they need to see it 7 or to 10 times before they do, which is a lot more ad spend to test, because until it's run that many times, you don't even know if it's working or not. So you're like, is it the pricing? Is it this? Is it this? Or do we just need to run it longer? Like, it just is such a headache. That's why like I burned like 10K on one of these types of ad campaigns before. I was like, okay, I think it's not working. Because I was like, I still don't have conclusive data. I was like, I'm going to tweak things. Tweak. And then I was like, okay, like I've tweaked every little thing. It's a major thing that's wrong here. Pull the ads. But what you do is you just say, hey, like for our anniversary, we're giving away this. If you'd like to enter, name and email here. I don't do like a giveaway like you've probably seen on Instagram before, like this post, tag your friends, share it to your story, a bunch of things that people don't want to do. It's just name and email on the first step. But then on the second page, it says, you're in. We'll let you know or not if you won in the next couple of weeks. In the meantime, if you'd like to increase your chances to win, you can follow us on Instagram for an extra entry. You can like our Facebook page. You can follow us on TikTok. You can subscribe to our podcast. You can review our podcast for 3 extra entries. You can refer a friend to it and get an extra 5. I don't give them like all these options, but literally just whatever your company needs, you put as the additional entries there, so that if they just want to do the name and email and just be done with it, cool, we got them. And if not, well over 30% of people do like all of them is the cool thing. And then you just grow every single platform. And then at the end of the giveaway, you say, all right, we've got our winner. It's Billy from Iowa. For everyone else, thank you so much for playing. As a consolation prize, you can get 20% off our entire website over the next week. And then you run the sale after you've collected the leads, so that if it was going to work, your sale campaign, we're still going to get the sale. We're just going to tie it into the giveaway. And a discount that makes sense is so much more powerful to the customer, because otherwise every other discount looks, hey, like if you buy our stuff, like we'll discount it. It seems like, hey, because you entered our contest, like this is a very special occasion. No one else is getting this. This is the very special coupon code for you because you participated. It's a little bit more real of the discount to them. So it usually works out pretty well. But all those people buy. If they're not ready to buy, they follow you everywhere. So the worst result, like even if 0 people buy, I've never seen a giveaway, as long as you just do like the targeting correctly, which isn't that hard, but obviously that's where I come in. That's where I help people that just want to do it right the first time. Then if you just put your product in front of people who want it, you're going to get people who enter it for free. And I've done this for, I've been teaching this for the last 4 years. I've just modified how the course is. It's always been the same thing that I'm teaching in the course, actually. It's just been modified delivery. And like course name. The course name is super important, by the way. So then now that I've just done it so many times, I can see, like, even with someone, I say $500 is the minimum budget I would spend on this, just because it's enough setup that you don't want to half-ass it, and let's at least get a minimum of 1,000 entries. And I've never seen someone get less than 1,000 entries spending $500. So if you have 1,000 entries, we can at least test your offer and get conclusive data of what to do next. So if no one buys, it still is conclusive of what to do next, and you got 1,000 followers. So it's just like, that's why I say you can't really lose, even though, like I told you earlier, I'm like, I still have people that have the perspective, but no one bought though. I'm like, we know exactly what to do now. what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like that, it's so great. So, you know, they were testing out their brand new clothing line or art store. Like it's not supposed to work on your first launch ever. And if it does, that's great. But if not, it's just motivation. And now you have a cool story. Otherwise, like you were saying, you don't really have a cool story to come on podcast later and share your perspective. You just sound like, oh yeah, I just set it up and it worked right away. Doesn't really make for an interesting life story.
And the thing that's interesting too, of course, is you've learned what not every lesson, you know, and actually it was another podcast that you did recently. It's the idea of like, you know, failure is a lesson. Like, stop saying that, you know, but it's the absence of success, not failure. It's like so we did an experiment. The experiment had a measurable outcome. It was not aligned with what I believed it would be. So therefore, most people, you know, so part of society
I'll
would
take
be
it
like,
personally.
right, exactly. That I clearly did this wrong. I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't have any more money to experiment, so I'm tapping out. Versus me, I think like I know exactly what not to do next time. It's sort of the George Costanza. I think about the dumbest thing I could ever say, and then I say the opposite thing. And it's like
Oh,
it does it does work, and you do have to not take it personally. You have to say like, okay, that didn't work. I tried it with I have a coffee brand, and same thing. I was like, I tried an ad run, and I got a bunch of people who commented like, you know, not seeing, you know, there's too many of these. I see other stuff that's like you out there, and it was like, it's at first I'm like reading the comments, going like, this is why you don't read the comments, because these people are like, they're just like, they took the time to tell me that they didn't like that they got my ad, and I was like, wow, you're super motivated to just like make my day bad.
yeah.
And I had to think of like, fair enough, that was their motivation to do it, so be it, you know. And so I'm like, all right, they're probably not a customer, so be it. But if they had signed up for a list and abandoned a cart, okay, they're qualified. They were almost there. They did real action that led them towards being a qualified, you know, I hate the word prospect, right? Potential customer. And like, okay, so now let's hand them something. So I started simple thing, right? They buy a coffee. 2 weeks later, they get a postcard in the mail that says, hey, here's your unique coupon code. It's good for a month because, you know, you already performed an action. You are likely to do this again. And, you know, about, like I said, numbers about 30% sort of success rate on repurchase. And that's great. And wherever we don't get it, then I'm like, hey, and then we can do that better, you know. And I learned to like go back and interact with that community of people and say like, you know, what can we do better? And if I had more time, you know, I would put more to it. But I learned those lessons in an inexpensive way using kind of methods you're talking about. Now I say this is right, like, guess what? Derek's got a new customer because I definitely need help, and I'm keen to you know, figure out how to take stuff to the next level. So with that, Derek, who is your ideal customer? Because I want to make sure that we, you know, sort of qualify people of like, this is the right time and the right type of business that will map well to what, you know, you can deliver value for.
Yeah, so my ideal follower, so just anyone who would take value from following me on Instagram or any platform that I'm on, is anyone who is an entrepreneur in any regard or wants to be someday. So it's wide like that. I'm sure there's something for you, even if it's just the motivation to get started. I've got content on, you know, reaching out that far. And then my dream customer right now, at least, is just anyone who has a B2C business that is ready to get more followers, emails, more sales, that you want to do it all in one. This giveaway model is what I've just been perfecting over the last 4 years, and I haven't sold anything outside of helping people with that. I give free information on everything else, but otherwise I'm just trying to become the number one person in this space on social media giveaways. And maybe over time it will change from us doing Instagram ads to TikTok ads or VR ads or whatever, but the model itself has been around for decades, really. If you go to a home show, there's a reason why all the Windows booths are doing a giveaway for Windows, because they want
Yeah.
people who are interested in Windows but not ready to buy Windows right then and there. It's just a very common model to get leads who want the exact product you're selling rather than general leads. So if you'd like my free course on how to do this, it's called How to Build and Monetize a Following in 90 Days or Less. You can go to www.socialbamboo.com/free course. Free. Oh yeah, there's no hyphen in between free course. Yeah, it's just free course.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll have
free
the
course.
links below for people that are in
Okay.
there. So I'll have it in the description, because I do want to push people towards you. Yeah, again, it is a beauty in the, like I said, the integrity to the process that you bring, and so I've seen a lot. Boy, oh boy, I've seen, because once you go down that algorithmic road of like clicking one just to kind of see, because I like to learn. So it's like watching other people's stuff. And I actually use a platform, and found it on Instagram. And I was like, it's one of those like, yeah, buy now, and like all of the markers are there for these like very good formulaic ways to unlock, path to a customer experience. And it was neat, and I did it. And then I immediately went to all of their competitors and said, like, how are they advertising? How are they doing stuff? And I kind of said, okay, I'm going to run with this, because I wanted to educate myself on how it worked. And then now that I look and I see, yeah, a lot of players in the market who are like, they're just refactoring, I said PLR, private label rights. They're buying an ebook, reselling the ebook, and they're just hoping that that's going to be their thing because they bought a course on how to use PLR to generate courses. And you're like, that may work, but it doesn't, and it's not your approach, which is, again, it needs to be said that we are here because good things come from what you've done, and you have such a positive human intent in how you're doing it.
Yeah, I appreciate you noticing that. And the integrity is very important in the digital education space. What we've really seen over the last few years, if you've paid attention to all the 8-figure a month course sellers, most of them can't sell anything anymore because their name is mud, because they just were like, hey, anyone can do it, no experience, quit your 9 to 5, live a dream lifestyle. This is my Lamborghini. And they sold you on the dream and everything. And whether that's ethical or not is a whole other thing. But the thing is that it works really well on a lot of people who were never really meant to be entrepreneurs, not because they can't do it, because they have physical, like actual skill deficits. It's more like you can only do if you want to do it. Like anything else out there, you can be a professional basketball player if you want to play basketball 6 to 8 hours a day. If you want to work on your business 6 to 8 hours a day, you can be an entrepreneur as well. So a lot of those people figure out that they don't want to be an entrepreneur in the end, and they knew that too selling it. But regardless, I've seen some of them get sued for a ton of money, and a lot of those guys like are even facing jail time. So it's not a space that you want to. I really think that if I had a lack of morals, I could have made a lot more money by now. And I do think there are plenty of people who make a ton of money that are completely morally sound about the entire thing. But when you see like someone who's like a quick, like, here's how I built my business to this in 2 years, it's probably because I sold a dream and delivered just whatever, like just some random information. Like there's like a course trader that I bought from that, like he was just having a cough attack in his whole course. He's like, sorry guys, I'm like real sick right now. Anyway, and I was like, why are you recording today? Like, this is the thing. Like, this is the only reason I would come back to you. I'm like, this little test course just sold me off of every one of your courses forever. So you don't want, your name is the only thing that you have going for you if you're going to do a digital education business long term. So even if I have someone who like goes through my course and like has any kind of bad experience at all, I'm always like, we're doing all right, here's like 2 free private calls redeemable whenever. Like, I'm just like, I will patch up every little thing. No one's allowed to give me money and feel like they lost without me then overcompensating it on the back end. Because I have a long-term vision in this. I want to speak on stages and stuff, and yeah, it's just, if you're trying to get in digital education based business, you can make a lot of money very quickly and ruin your name if you want to, but otherwise it is more of a You actually have to have a good product. Go figure. You're selling a product that no one knows what they're buying until they actually buy it. Is why you can sell dreams and then it actually be whatever. You can't do that in the product space nearly as easily. Online, you can in some regards, but digital education. I mean, as soon as they buy one bad thing from you, it's done.
That's it. Yeah, and it's an amazing thing of, you know, and I watch. So the funny thing is, I've always got, like I said, cards and coins that are sitting around. I've got a friend who's a fantastic magician, the best in the world, and so I just sort of picked up the habit. It's better than a fidget spinner. And I said, like, even just like small things that you do, that when somebody shows you, they're like, I can teach you how to do this, and they're like, because I don't know how to not do a simple fan that looks like it's perfect every time, because I've done it hundreds and thousands of times at this point, just sitting at, in front of, on a meeting, and there's like they're muscle memory things that you do. But if you come at it and you say, like, I'm going to teach you how to do this, it's this easy, and you say it's easy, you just take it and then you do this and there you go. And it's just, it depends on how you squeeze. If that's my course, they're like, no one will buy a second course from me, because I'm like, I didn't actually show them how to do it. And God bless the magic YouTubers that are out there doing that thing, where they're always like, it's easy. So you take the card and then you make a little, the hook 'em horn sign. And then from there, then all you do is you just get rid of the card. And you're like, fantastic. You just showed me a back palm vanish. I have no idea how you actually did it. And if I charge you $10 to learn that, it's like, it looks great and it's neat, but I'm frustrated by the experience of not actually getting a true tutorial, not actually getting valuable like sort of like bite-sized steps to get through there. And I think that's where people just get lost in the process of like, oh, I can show them, I'm talented on a thing, I'm just going to show them how I do it. Like, no, you have to think like a course creator. You have to think like a consumer. How would you want to buy products? How would you want to learn, and inject that into your creation process?
And doing the done with you delivery method is really one of the only ways to really control this, because your course can be so amazing with the best examples ever. And there's just so many people that just need you to watch them try to do the vanishing card trick and then point out exactly what they're specifically doing wrong. So I really recommend for anyone just starting off too, it's very hard to make a completely do-it-yourself course without having done a done with you model first. Right. So I would really recommend that model for so many reasons.
So this is the fun part, because I know we're gonna wind up, and I'm gonna throw people every possible way I can towards you, Derek. Thank you very much for sharing the time today. And you motivate yourself through really challenging things, and inevitably you've had some tough moments. And one of my favorite questions, which I'm 100% sure I've stolen from somebody, and is, what's the most difficult thing you've ever faced that you're thankful for?
I guess it's really hard for me to, like, for my thoughts to go anywhere else apart from, like, I think just like like long-term relationships that come to an end, or even short-term ones that you didn't really want to come to an end, have been the only things that have like really derailed me in the past. I'm fortunate to say, like, with business, because I feel like I always have an answer, that I stay motivated. I have a very analytical brain, and if I can make sense of something, it's no problem. And I think the relationships are one of those things that you just can't look in terms of black and white nearly as easily as, business. Like, oh yeah, it's profitable or not, right? It's just kind of like, so I think it goes back to like the 4 agreements. Those are maybe the only times in my life that have really just made me forget not to take things personally, or been a little bit too difficult for me to do. And to that, I'd just say, you really want to find out, like, we recommend the 4 agreements. I recommend the Power Now. There's a lot of books that speak on this stuff that that is essentially the same exact teaching topic, but you want to find whichever way resonates with you. I've given out the book, The Four Agreements, to a bunch of people too. And some of
Nice.
them, I think like the timing matters, right? If
Yeah.
they didn't really want, if they weren't open to it, and then I made them read it, and they're like, I didn't like it that much. And it's just insane to me that anyone could ever say that, when I feel like that same person could find that book at the right time in their life. Just always do something. Like if you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But don't let yourself stop as much as you can. So if you're in a negative state, then and your own thoughts aren't serving you, that's why I like reading a book is often a really good time, because like let's just indulge in someone else's thoughts right now, and try to take yourself out of that. It's hard for me to really see those situations as any kind of a big deal at this point. And I think like anyone can really say that. It's just kind of hard to actually live that out. So we're all human. I can really motivate. I can spit motivation for days, and it motivates the shit out of me too, like doing podcasts. So selfishly, I do the podcast as well. Like you were saying, I like to just, I'm not going to go to take a nap after our podcast today. Now I'm like, all right, let's go. Like
That's
it's
right.
always,
I come in here, I'm like fired up. I'm ready to do stuff. I'm like, I want to start my business. I'm gonna I am super motivated coming out of this conversation for sure.
good. Yeah, I hope listeners are as well. I mean, it's just doing a little bit of action. Hopefully, your energy state right now is better than it was before coming on the podcast. So try to avoid, the victim mindset in any regard, because it keeps you from moving forward. And also try not to make assumptions of other things. Try not to take things personally. It really, like, the Four Agreements has nothing to do with business, but it has everything to do with business at the same time, because when you become an entrepreneur, your business is becoming a little bit more of your life than a lot of times taking other jobs is. Even though I know a lot of other people, they're well off the clock and they're still getting messages from their manager and everything. So, it still consumes a lot of us. But the thing with entrepreneurship is that you can always make the choice to work more, or like literally whatever you're doing at any time, you can always change it for work hours. And there is just like, sometimes people feel like the guilt that they're not working. And, you're just, everyone's got to figure it out. I'm going to leave with these words though, because I know I just said a lot of like random cliches. Is ultimately the number one experience and knowledge that you can get out there by far is personal wisdom. And the smartest person in the world could give you really bad advice. So you when you're newer in entrepreneurship, you want to take all these thoughts from all these other people, listen to podcasts like you are, and take what you love and then go apply it. But ultimately, every person out there is different in terms of like how far they want to go, like how much money they actually want to make. They might only want a 6-figure business because the sacrifice to get to the 7-figure is no longer worth it. So don't let someone talk you into like why you need a 7-figure business, but this only comes from personal wisdom. That's why it is so much, get out of your head as best as you can, and just play. Just take action, just play the game, and you'll be so glad you did, because the only regrets that I have looking back at life are those times where I let myself stay in that negative state too long, and just over process something that I had already well processed. Once something has already given you the lessons, you really want to try to stop your brain from going there as much as it can. And I think since the world is kind of dopamine addicted right now, between social media and just the pace of life and the immediacy that everything can come to you at. If you want to learn about something, it's on your phone. Just the amount of dopamine that exists in the world today. Or even when I went to Europe, it was like, oh, there's no advertisements on any of the buildings here. Like I've never even noticed like that, because I'm so like immune to it now, right? Like it's a very dopamine stimulating world. And if you are not on social media and you're alone with your thoughts, a way that you can stimulate dopamine is thinking about negative things. So realize like your thought, like you are not your thoughts, is the way that the book, The Power of Now, which is my all-time favorite, The Four Agreements now being the second, explains it. And it's, if you realize like, hey, these thoughts, like that's not me. That's like part of me trying to stimulate dopamine. That is just me trying to feel bad for myself. That is me trying to enable laziness where I don't have to work on my goals and I get to just think about anything else. You can, I kind of try to imagine that like the thoughts are in my brain and then I'm like pushing them down. I'm like, they're now in my neck where I don't even comprehend them. Now I have the free headspace. I'm just trying to like physically like imagine that. It's like an exercise that helps me where I'm just like pushing. They're no longer in my brain, so I can't even hear them. They're down here. And figure out what works for you, because that right there will work for 20% of you. The other 80% it doesn't work for. So try to understand life conceptually is a big advantage, because if you say, okay, I get what he's saying here, I need to find some kind of routine that I can fall back on when these negative thoughts come up. I'll try a Derek's routine. If I don't like it, then I'll kind of understand what he's trying to do and what I'm trying to accomplish. If you can understand life conceptually, then you will have personal wisdom. And if you have personal wisdom, that's where true confidence comes from. That's where you being able to make decisions consistently right comes from, and not needing to always call someone, because it's great when you can, but it's not always available to you. You are really the only ally that you always have. And even if your family doesn't support you and your friends don't support you in your business, I just came out with like a reel on this. Like it doesn't matter. Unfortunately, like support is great, but you also need to be able to do it without. So you are your greatest ally. You have to learn to trust yourself. And this comes from personal wisdom. So don't stop taking action, and don't stop trying to understand the world around you conceptually. Watch where money is moving and know that there's always an answer. You just got to ask the right questions.
I couldn't possibly close out with anything more wise than what you just laid out, Derek. Thank you very much. So for folks that do want to reach you, Chris, we can follow the links below. So in the episode notes and on the YouTube videos, or folks that are, if you choose to smash said like button and do all of those things that YouTube loves you to do, that I would love you to do, because these are the kind of great conversations that make me realize that my day is worth waking up for. And that a lot of people, if we can motivate one person just to have a better day, it's a damn good day. And I've had a damn good day, and it's about to get better because of this discussion. Derek, thank you very much. So what's the best way if we want to, obviously you're on Instagram.
We got find me on Instagram. Whatever I got going on is in my bio. So at Social Bamboo with an underscore at the end.
And we'll have a link to the free course, which I totally tell people they should get in, because it's an opportunity to sort of see the method, sort of get a taste of what's right. And like the 4 agreements, like a lot of things, the perfect thing at the wrong time is not perfect. However, if at least it's there and you know it's there, so when you're ready to take the leap, then you got access to the right resources, and humans are the best resources, especially ones that have lived the experience, that have had the plus and minus columns filled, and that can do it and then tell that story with integrity and are willing to walk the journey with you. So that's why we're here. And with that, there you go, Derek Videll. Thank you very much. And folks, do make sure you follow Derek on Instagram. And if you're not motivated for this, then you have no soul. That's it. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Eric. And thanks everyone for listening.